Surprise, you're covering my $38,000 wedding venue as your gift to me, my sister said. Later, I accidentally overheard Mom whisper, "Do not worry, we'll make him pay." I just whispered, "Copy that," opened my laptop, and pulled my full transaction history. 33 transfers, 2 loan repayments, 7 dinners, all paid by me. I sent her an invoice titled, "Congratulations. Father called a week later. Is this real?" On Monday, the venue tagged "Canceled." On Thursday, they got a black envelope. I was halfway through drawing a golden doodle named Pancake when my sister said it. Not hinted, not joked, said. "Surprise," Bella announced from the doorway of my grooming room, smiling like she was delivering flowers instead of a bill. "You're covering my $38,000 wedding venue as your gift to me." The dryer was still running in my left hand. Pancake turned his head and blinked at me like even he knew that sentence was insane. "What?" I asked. Bella laughed. "Don't make that face." I clicked the dryer off. The room went quiet except for Pancake's tags tapping against his collar and the soft hum of the air conditioner over the shampoo shelves. "You just said I'm paying 38 grand, I said. "Yes." She leaned one shoulder against the doorframe. "Because you're my brother." "No." I heard the words. "I'm asking why you think that would happen." She looked offended in that polished way she got from our mother. Bella could make greed sound like etiquette. "Because family helps family," she said. I stared at her. She was 32, wearing white sneakers that probably cost more than my electric bill, holding her iced coffee with her engagement ring angled toward the light. I was 34, standing in dog hair with wet sleeves and blueberry shampoo on my wrist, trying to understand how this conversation had entered the world. "You're serious," I said. "Obviously, I'm serious." Pancake sneezed. I set the dryer down slowly because my hands had gone cold. "Bella, I'm a pet groomer." She rolled her eyes. "Sydney, please. You own the shop. I lease half a storefront in Plano and work 6 days a week bathing anxious schnauzers. You're doing fine. Fine isn't $38,000. She shrugged. "It's not like it has to hurt you." That sentence did something ugly to my stomach. I looked at the clock on the wall. 2:14 p.m. Tuesday. Pancake had a little blue bandana folded on the counter. My next appointment, Mrs. Holloway's senior poodle, was due in 16 minutes. Real life was sitting right there, small and ordinary. Bella was talking like reality was optional. "Who told you I was paying for your venue?" I asked. Bella took a sip of her drink. "Mom and I talked. It makes the most sense." "No, it doesn't. It does if you care about this family." There it was, the knife line. Not "can you," not "would you," not "we hope you'll consider it." If you care about this family. Pancake shifted on the table. His paw touched my forearm. My brain counted automatically, the way it always does when I'm angry and trying not to show it. $38,000. 3 years of rent. 6 months of payroll. 427 full grooms at my current average ticket. I didn't breathe right for a second. "Say that again," I said. Bella's smile thinned. "Don't be dramatic. Say it again." She crossed her arms. "If you care about this family, you'll do this one thing without making me beg on my own wedding year. One thing." My mind flashed through the history so fast, it felt like a slideshow shoved under my skin. The down payment on her car when she was 24 and between jobs. The $4,800 transfer when her old apartment accidentally double charged her. The 2 loan repayments I covered, so Dad's credit wouldn't take another hit. The dinners. The florist deposit for our cousin's baby shower that somehow became my problem. The temporary things. The small favors. The family language. Smooth it over. Be generous. Don't keep score. I had swallowed all of it because fighting with my family always felt like trying to nail jelly to a wall. They changed facts by changing tone. They made theft sound rude to question. Bella walked closer. "You're not married," she said. "You don't have kids. You don't have the same expenses I do." I actually laughed once. It wasn't happy. "So that's the argument? It's the truth." "The truth," I repeated, "is that you want me to write a $38,000 check because you picked a venue with a fountain wall and imported chairs. It's not imported chairs. Sydney. Great. Then maybe it's cheaper than 38,000. Her mouth tightened. You're being selfish. I looked at her for a long second. Then I said the quiet thing. No, I think you just got used to hearing yes. Her face changed. That was when Mom's heels clicked down the hall toward us. She was early, which meant she had been listening nearby, or Bella had texted for backup. With my family, both were possible. What's going on? Mom asked, already knowing. Your son is acting weird, Bella said. I looked at Mom. Did you tell her I'm paying for this? Mom gave me the calm smile she used in public, the one that made strangers think she was gentle. We said it would be a beautiful gift. It's your sister. It's $38,000. Mom lowered her voice as if that made extortion classy. You've done well, Sydney. I do dogs' nails for a living. And you own your business. I own a grooming schedule, a mop, and a tax headache. Bella huffed. I cannot believe you're doing this. Doing what? Ruining this moment. I looked from her to Mom. Neither of them looked embarrassed. That's what got me. Not the ask. The certainty. The settled confidence that I would absorb it because I always had. The front bell chimed. Mrs. Holloway stepped in with her poodle, smiling apologetically. Am I early? I turned toward the lobby so fast, I almost thanked her for existing. You're right on time, I said. Bella hissed. We're not done. I looked back at her and held her eyes. You are, I said. Then I took the leash from Mrs. Holloway, checked her in, and kept my face neutral while my pulse hammered in my throat. My hands were steady because years of clipping around a dog's eyes had taught me control. Inside, I was somewhere else entirely. At 5:48 p.m., when I locked up and walked through the side hall toward the parking lot, I heard my mother's voice through the cracked office door. Soft, whispering. Do not worry, she said. We'll make him pay. Everything in me went still. I could see only a slice of the room through the gap. Mom near the filing cabinet, Bella sitting on the desk, scrolling through her phone. Bella asked, You promise? Mom gave the little laugh she used when she thought she was being clever. He always pays. He likes pretending he's the responsible one. My mouth went dry. My fingers went cold on my keys. Bella sighed. I just need this handled. It will be, Mom said. Leave it to me. I didn't go in. I didn't slam the door. I didn't scream. I just whispered, copy that, walked to my car, opened my laptop in the front seat, and pulled my full transaction history. 33 transfers, 2 loan repayments, 7 dinners, all paid by me. I'm Sydney Mercer. I'm 34. I live in Plano, Texas, and I own a pet grooming shop called Clean Snout. It sounds cuter than it feels at tax time. On paper, my life looks steady. I rent a small duplex with a cracked back patio and a lemon tree that has never once committed to producing actual lemons. I wake up at 6:10 every morning. I open the shop by 7:30. I spend most days getting peed on by nervous terriers and thanked by women named Carol. I keep my books in color-coded folders because numbers are easier than people. I have one employee, Tasha, who can calm a snarling Shih Tzu faster than most therapists calm adults. My work is honest. It is also physical, repetitive, and not remotely the goldmine my family pretends it is when they need something. My father retired from commercial insurance 2 years ago with exactly the personality you'd expect from a man who liked deductibles. My mother, Denise, spent 25 years in real estate and learned how to turn pressure into a polished sentence. My sister Bella has worked in brand partnerships for most of her adult life, which I think means sending emails with the word synergy in them. And me? I became the person who fixed things. Not because I'm the oldest. Bella and I are only 2 years apart. Not because I'm the richest, because I'm not. Not because I'm the most successful, depending on how you define success. I became that person because I was the one least willing to watch a problem explode. My family figured that out early. The first time was 12 years ago, when Bella called me crying from a parking garage in Austin. I can't leave, she said. Why? They're going to tow my car. Why? A pause. Then, I'm behind. On what? Everything. I was 22, working in somebody else's grooming salon, renting a room over a garage, and eating a lot of eggs, because eggs were cheap. Bella had a newer car than I did and 3 times the confidence. I remember standing behind the salon with a trash bag full of clipped fur at my feet while she sobbed into the phone. How much? I asked. Please don't be mad. How much? 860. I had $1,940 in my checking account. I sent it anyway. She said, "You saved me." I said, "Pay me back." She said, "Of course." I was stupid enough to hear that as a plan. The second incident was 5 years later, after Dad temporarily borrowed against a line of credit he shouldn't have touched. I found out because he called me from the driveway of my shop after closing. He didn't come inside. Dad didn't like standing in places where I was clearly in charge. We had a little mix-up, he said. We? Your mother and I. How little? He looked at the steering wheel instead of me. 2 payments. How much? 4,300. I remember the exact way the fluorescent sign from the taco place next door flashed across his face. Red, then dark. Red, then dark. Why are you telling me? I asked. He exhaled through his nose. Because if we miss again, it affects your mother's credit. I should have said no. I know that now. Instead, I asked, what's the plan to fix it? Dad gave a shrug that made me hate him for a second. We just need breathing room. Breathing room is another one of my family's phrases. It means your money, our relief. I transferred it that night. Mom texted me, "You're a good son. No repayment date. No shame. Just a compliment as a receipt." The third one was smaller, which almost made it worse. Bella had started dating Grant, the man she was now marrying. And suddenly, every dinner became an event. Rooftops, tasting menus, boutique Mexican places with tiny portions and lighting too dim to see the bill until it landed. At the end of one dinner, 7 of us had just finished pretending a $6 spoonful of ceviche was a normal amount of food. The server set the check down. Bella touched my wrist and smiled. "You don't mind, right?" she said. "Mind what?" "Getting this one. We already spent so much on the shower consultation this morning." I looked at the folder beside her. She had brought printed mood boards to brunch. How much was the consultation? Only $1,200. Only, Mom jumped in. Sydney, don't be tacky. The bill was $681.14 before tip. I paid it. In the car afterward, I sat with both hands on the wheel and realized I had spent almost $700 so Bella could talk about napkin textures. I remember laughing once at a red light because my body didn't have a better reaction ready. The pattern wasn't random. That's the part people miss when they hear stories like this. They imagine one dramatic ask, one crazy day, one family explosion. No, it was built in layers, a transfer here, a rescue there, an expectation wrapped in praise. My family language was always the same. Keep it smooth. Don't make a scene. Family helps. You know how your father gets. Your sister is under pressure. You're better with money. It's just this once. I used to swallow it because I thought that was maturity. I thought restraint meant love. I thought if I kept enough things from falling, eventually somebody would notice that I was the one holding them up. They noticed. They just liked it. By the time Bella got engaged, she had already trained herself to treat my bank account like an annex of our parents' home. Not hers exactly, but available, nearby, a resource. And my parents encouraged it because it solved problems without costing them status. Mom loved big family optics. The photos, the nice restaurant tables, the idea that the Mercers show up for each other. That line always landed well at parties because nobody could see the wiring behind it. Dad loved not being bothered. If money appeared and tension disappeared, that was his favorite kind of morality. I thought it was temporary. It wasn't. The worst part wasn't even the money. It was how my role hardened around me. At Bella's engagement dinner, Grant lifted his glass and said, "To Bella, the easiest woman to love." Everybody laughed. Mom said, "And to Sydney, our reliable one." Reliable one. That landed in my chest like a label gun. Not kind, not loved, not funny, not brilliant. Reliable. Like a wall outlet. The night I overheard Mom whisper, "We'll make him pay," I sat in my car outside my duplex and opened statements going back 6 years. I made a spreadsheet, date, amount, description, transfer, loan repayment, restaurant, vendor. I attached screenshots from Zelle, bank confirmations, card statements, a digital copy of the 2 promissory notes Dad had signed and then apparently forgotten existed. One was for $2,100. The other was for $3,400. Different years, same handwriting, same temporary. By 11:22 p.m., I had a number: $27,486.19. That was money I could prove had gone from me to them or for them, not including birthday gifts, not including Christmas, not including the time I paid for Bella's dress alteration rush fee because she called me crying from a fitting room and said, "I swear I'll cover it this week." I didn't count emotional labor because there's no invoice code for listening to your mother reframe theft as sentiment. At midnight, Tasha texted me a picture of a bulldog in a Halloween sweater from 3 years ago. No context, just the photo, and remember this menace? I stared at it for a full minute and laughed so hard I had to wipe my eyes. Because that was the thing. My real life was normal. Messy, but normal. Dogs, rent, payroll, coffee, taxes, fur in my shoes, customers who over-explained their labradoodles. Then I'd step into family orbit, and suddenly I was a funding source with a pulse. I made one folder on my desktop: Mercer History. Then a second, Bella Wedding. Then I started pulling vendor names from the wedding website Bella had sent around, like royalty issuing proclamations, venue name, deposit structure, cancellation policy, final payment schedule. Public enough to find if you knew where to look. And I knew how Bella operated. She loved vendors that sounded expensive even before they were. At 1:08 a.m., I sat back and looked at the spreadsheet. 33 transfers, 2 loan repayments, 7 dinners. The number was ugly. The pattern was uglier. And the feeling that finally settled over me was not rage. It was clarity. The first pressure wave started Wednesday morning. Mom called at 8:03 a.m., right as I was expressing anal glands on a Cocker Spaniel named Winston. There are not many elegant ways to begin a blackmail conversation, but that was mine. I let it go to voicemail. Then Bella called, then Dad, then Mom again. By lunch, I had 6 missed calls and 1 text from Bella that said, "You embarrassed me yesterday." I texted back, "Good." 3 dots appeared. Disappeared? Reappeared. Bella, are you actually refusing? Me, yes. Bella, over 1 gift? Me, over $38,000. Bella, you're acting poor to make a point. I stared at that one for a full 10 seconds. Then I locked my phone and went back to work because there was a husky undercoat exploding in Bay 2. And unlike my family, that problem was honest. That night, Mom came by the duplex unannounced. I saw her car through the blinds and felt my jaw tighten. She knocked exactly 3 times, the way she always does when she's trying to perform patience. I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. She took that in immediately. "Really?" she said. "Yes. It's hot out here. That sounds difficult." Mom's face changed just enough to register insult. Then she smoothed it over. "Can we be adults? We could try." She looked past me into the duplex, cataloging the evidence of my life. Dog-eared invoices on the kitchen table, my boots by the door, a bag of kibble I'd brought home for a customer's emergency boarding issue. Mom always did that. Looked at your surroundings like they might expose a weakness she could use. "This doesn't have to become ugly," she said. "It already is. You know what I mean." "I do. You mean you want me cooperative?" Mom crossed her arms. "Bella is under enormous pressure. So am I. This is different." Because she's wearing white, Mom exhaled sharply. "Can you hear yourself?" "Yes, she's your sister, and you told her you'd make me pay." That landed. For 1 clean second, Mom's face went blank. Then she laughed, and it was too quick. "I have no idea what you're talking about." Office doorway. Tuesday, around 5:48. You said, "Do not worry, we'll make him pay." Mom's eyes narrowed. "Were you eavesdropping?" "I was leaving work." That's a nasty way to twist something. I almost admired it. Almost. What did I twist? Mom tilted her head. I meant emotionally. I meant he'll come around, you always go to the ugliest interpretation. There it was. Reframe, smooth, polished. No, I said. I just finally went to the accurate one. Her jaw tightened. You are punishing your sister. No, I'm declining a bill that isn't mine. She has already told people, then she told them too early. Mom's voice dropped. The venue expects an answer. That sounds like Bella's problem. Grant's family is involved. I smiled, without meaning to. Ah, there they are. Mom hated that. Not the comment. The fact that I'd named the real lover. Status. Optics. The groom's family. The venue. The photos. The narrative. Do not be cruel, she said. I looked at her. You came to my home to pressure me into funding a wedding I didn't agree to, and I'm the cruel one. Mom tried one more angle. What do I tell your father? The truth. She said nothing. I said, do you want help with the wording? Then I closed the door. The second pressure wave came through Dad, which was new only in method. Dad preferred force disguised as reason. He called me Thursday morning. Your mother is upset. That's survivable. Don't get smart. Too late. He went quiet. Dad used silence like a pry bar. Then, how much is the venue? 38,000. He made a short, dismissive sound. Not the whole wedding. No, just the venue. And you can't help. I laughed once. Can't and won't are both true. He ignored that. You know your sister doesn't think in numbers. That sentence was so ridiculous, I actually sat down on the grooming stool. Dad, she's 32. She's planning an event. She's planning her wedding. He snapped. And your mother says you're making this difficult out of spite. No, I'm making it difficult out of math. He exhaled. What do you need to make this right? That was interesting. Not what do you want, what do you need to make this right? Like we were haggling over my cooperation. I need everyone to stop speaking as if my income is communal property. That's dramatic. I learned from professionals. He went quiet again. Then he tried the old guilt. After everything your mother and I did for you. I stared at the clipping schedule on the wall. There it is, I said. What? The invoice for raising me. Dad's voice hardened. Don't be disrespectful. Don't be transactional with parenthood. He hung up. At 2:17 p.m., Bella sent me a screenshot of the venue's payment schedule. Deposit due Monday. I stared at it for a second. Then she followed with, don't do this to me. I typed, you are doing it to yourself. She called immediately. I answered, because sometimes it's useful to hear the panic up close. How can you be this cold? She demanded. How can you send me your venue payment schedule like it's my utility bill? Because we already counted on you. Who is we? She hesitated. Then, Mom, Dad, Grant, me. There it was. The committee. I stood in the back office looking at the corkboard where I'd pinned rabies certificates and holiday hours. My whole body felt calm in a way that usually comes before a storm or a decision. Bella, I said, where exactly was the conversation where I agreed to this? You didn't say no. I blinked. I'm sorry? You never said no before. Not really. That one was honest. That was the problem. I asked, did you sign a venue contract expecting me to cover it? She didn't answer. Bella, it was assumed. By whom? She went louder. By family. I kept my tone flat. Show me where I agreed. You're being impossible. No, I'm being concrete. She started crying then, but in the irritated way, not the broken one. Grant is furious, she said. I'm sure. He thinks you're humiliating us. That's because he was comfortable spending my money. That's not fair. Neither is billing your brother for your wedding. She sniffed. Everybody already knows you're helping. Then everybody is about to learn a new thing. That afternoon, I stopped arguing and started documenting harder. I saved every text. I exported call logs. I pulled Bella's old messages. Found one from 11 months earlier. If I'm short on the florist deposit, can you float it a few days? Promise, promise, promise I'll repay. She never did. Found another from 3 years ago. You are literally saving my life. I'll send half Friday and half next week. She never did. I made PDFs. I highlighted totals. I wrote a clean cover page, family financials, for internal clarity. By Saturday, Bella had shifted from private pressure to practical harm. She posted an Instagram story from a tasting room with the caption, "Grateful for everyone making this dream happen." Then tagged Mom, Dad, Grant, and me. I saw it because Tasha sent me a screenshot with that was the first public move. The second was worse. Mom sent a group text to 3 aunts and 2 cousins while accidentally on purpose including me. We are all doing our best to support Bella in this season. Some people are choosing pride over family. My Aunt Colleen immediately replied, "Oh no, what happened?" Before I could type, Mom answered, "Just pray for softness, softness." I took a screenshot. Then Bella sent another private text. "If you blow this up, I will never forgive you." I wrote back, "That's fine." At 10:41 p.m., Grant himself called for the first time in his life with anything resembling urgency. "Sydney," he said, and his voice had that polished sales tone men use when they think they're being reasonable, because they haven't started shouting yet. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." There has. Bella believed, Bella assumed. He paused. "You've been very supportive. That was my first mistake." He ignored it. "This venue is important to her. Then she should pay for it. We've already committed. You used my name without asking. No one used your name." I laughed. "Then why do I have screenshots saying people know I'm helping?" He went silent just a fraction too long. Then, "Can we solve this privately? We can solve it accurately." What does that mean? "It means I'm done funding a fantasy that includes me only as a line item." His voice flattened. "You're causing a lot of damage over money." "No, you tried causing a lot of damage with my money." He hung up too. That's when I built the invoice. Not a fake emotional one. A real invoice. Clean Snout Business Services. Client, Bella Mercer. Subject, congratulations. Then line items, historical family transfers, unpaid. Loan repayments, unpaid. Event-related expenses, unpaid. Meals and vendor charges fronted by Sydney Mercer. I attached dates and amounts. Not hostile, not dramatic, just exact. At the bottom, I added, "This document reflects previously unpaid financial support extended over multiple years. It is being provided in response to the recent assumption that additional wedding expenses would be covered by the undersigned. No further financial support will be extended." Balance due, $27,486.19. Payment terms, immediate acknowledgement requested. No new obligations accepted. I stared at the title for a while. Congratulations. Then I sent it to Bella, Mom, and Dad by email at 8:02 a.m. Sunday. Subject line, "Congratulations." Nobody replied for 43 minutes. Then Bella called, then Mom, then Dad, then Bella again. Then Dad left a voicemail that said only, "What is this?" I saved it. On Monday morning, Bella texted in all caps, "Did you send this to Dad too?" I wrote back, "Yes." 3 minutes later, she said, "You are sick." I answered, "No, just finished." At 11:16 a.m., Dad called. "Is this real?" he asked. I was trimming a Bichon's face and had him on speaker in the back office. "Yes, you actually expect us to pay this?" "I expect you to stop acting like I owe you more. This is family." "Correct, which is why you recognized every line item." He breathed hard through his nose. "Your mother is beside herself. That makes 2 of us. You sent your sister a bill on her wedding week." "No, I sent your family a record on mine." There was a long pause. Then Dad said something that told me I'd been right all along. "We thought you'd let the old stuff go." I looked at the Bichon, who had one eye half closed in complete trust. "Exactly," I said. That afternoon, the venue's Instagram account tagged Bella in a polished little story about final preparations. By 4:52 p.m., that tag was gone. At 5:09 p.m., the venue's public calendar changed. Canceled. I stared at the word on my screen without blinking. Not because I had done anything to the venue. I hadn't called. I hadn't emailed. I hadn't interfered. I had simply refused to become their funding source. Turns out that was enough. Tuesday and Wednesday were chaos. Bella called 21 times. Mom showed up at the shop and sat in her car for 40 minutes without coming in, which somehow felt more threatening than knocking. Grant texted, "We need to resolve this before people start asking questions." I wrote back, "Then answer them honestly." He never replied. By Wednesday afternoon, I knew they were trying to patch the hole fast. Bella had updated her wedding website twice. First, venue details to follow. Then, intimate location adjustment. That one made me laugh because extortion always sounds ridiculous once it loses money. Then, Dad sent a single text. "Come to the house Thursday. 6 p.m. We are settling this as a family." I almost didn't go. Then I thought about all the years they'd relied on hallway conversations, emotional ambushes, and selective memory. They preferred spoken pressure because spoken pressure leaves less evidence. So I said yes, but I prepared, I printed the invoice, I printed the transfer logs, I printed the promissory notes Dad had signed, I printed the screenshots of Bella tagging me as one of the people making this dream happen. I printed Mom's group text about pride over family. Then I put everything into a black envelope. Not for drama, for order. At 5:52 p.m. Thursday, I parked outside my parents' house, the same brick, two-story where every conflict had ever been softened until it became my responsibility. The porch light was on. Mom always did that when company was expected, even if company was her own son being called in like a contractor. I took the envelope and went inside. Bella was at the dining room table with red eyes and perfect makeup. Grant sat beside her, stiff as pressed cardboard. Mom had a glass of white wine. Dad was standing at the end of the table like he planned to moderate civilization. No one offered me a seat, so I pulled one out and sat down anyway. Dad began immediately. "This has gone far enough." "Agreed," I said. Mom said, "Then stop." I set the black envelope on the table between us. Bella looked at it first. "What is that?" she asked. Clarity. Dad's mouth tightened. "We don't need theatrics. This isn't theater. It's paperwork." Grant leaned forward. "Sydney, we are willing to be reasonable." I looked at him. That's a brave sentence from a man who budgeted me into his wedding. Bella's eyes flashed. "I did not budget you in." I slid one screenshot out of the envelope and pushed it across the table. It was a text from Bella to one of her bridesmaids that I had because the bridesmaid, Hannah, had forwarded it to me that morning with, "I think you should have this." Bella had written, "Sid's covering the venue as his gift, so at least that part is locked." Bella went white. Grant turned to her. "You told them that." Mom cut in fast. "This is exactly why private family matters should stay private." I ignored her. Dad said, "What do you want?" There it was again. Not what is true. What do you want? I took out the invoice, then the transfer summary, then the 2 loan notes. I placed them in front of each of them. Bella's hand shook once when she reached for hers. Mom didn't touch hers at all. Dad picked up the top page, read the first lines, and went pale in a way I had only seen once before, when a doctor explained his blood pressure was no longer a suggestion. Grant scanned the total and looked at Bella. $27,000, he said. $486.19, I said. The room went still. One of the ice cubes in Mom's glass cracked. Bella stared at the pages and then at me like I had become a stranger by writing down what she'd done. "This is disgusting," she whispered. "No," I said, "it's itemized." Mom found her voice. "Sydney, put that away." "No." Dad looked up. "You expect repayment now." "No, I expect reality now." Grant asked the one useful question in the room. "Are these real transfers?" I said, "Every one." Bella started to cry harder. "You kept score." I looked at her for a long second. "No," I said. I got tired of being erased. Mom snapped, "How dare you?" I turned to her. Calm, precise. "How dare I what? Document what I paid. Remember what you forgot? Decline to underwrite another event. This is your sister's wedding. And this is my money." Dad slapped the pages once with the back of his hand. Not hard, just enough to make the paper jump. "We are not doing this tonight. We already are." He pointed at the envelope. "Take it and go." I shook my head. "No, keep it." Bella's voice cracked. "You ruined my venue. I answered with the truth, and let it sit there. No, your budget ruined your venue. That line landed in front of witnesses. Grant leaned back. His whole face had changed. He wasn't angry at me anymore. He was doing numbers in his head. That was new. Reality had finally reached the groom. He looked at Bella. Did you actually assume he was paying? Bella said nothing. Mom jumped in. We all believed Sydney wanted to help, I said. Show me where I said that. No one spoke. I asked again, concrete and calm, show me one message where I agreed to pay for the venue. Nothing. Dad's jaw moved once. Grant turned to Bella. Did you sign that contract without funds in place? Bella whispered. We were going to handle it. I almost laughed. We, that lovely plural where consequences disappear. Then Dad did what he always did when cornered. He turned forceful. This ends now, he said. You're going to withdraw this ridiculous invoice, apologize to your sister, and help fix the mess you created. I leaned back in the chair and looked at him. No, Mom actually put her hand over her chest like I had struck her. Bella started crying openly now, mascara still somehow perfect. I hate you. I nodded once. That's manageable. Grant stood up. For a second, I thought he might yell. Instead, he said the most devastating thing anyone could have said in that room, because it was factual. I need to call my mother. He walked out to the patio with his phone. Bella made a sound I had never heard from her before. Not heartbreak. Panic. Social panic. The kind that comes when the truth reaches the wrong audience. Mom stood too. This family is imploding because of your pride. I looked at her and gave my boundary in one clean sentence. Access to me is not a family right. Nobody moved. Mom just stared. Dad said, low and dangerous. Watch yourself. I stood up too. I took my keys. I left the envelope on the table. Then I added the irreversible step. As of tonight, I said, I am no longer making personal loans, covering emergencies, advancing bills, or participating in any financial discussion not made in writing. If either of you contacts my business regarding personal money again, I'll treat it as harassment. If Bella or Grant uses my name with any vendor, I will correct the record directly. Bella shot up from her chair. You can't do that. I can. Mom's face finally lost its polish. Sydney, don't you dare threaten us. I'm not threatening you. I'm defining the boundary. From the patio, through the glass, I could see Grant pacing with his hand over his mouth. Dad took one step toward me. You walk out on this family now. Don't expect. I cut him off. Don't expect what? More invoices? More pressure? More emergencies with my wallet attached? I'm good. That did it. Mom started shouting. Real shouting. Not polished concern. Panic. Bella was crying so hard she could barely get words out. Dad was red in the face. Somewhere outside, a dog barked. I walked to the front door. Behind me, Mom yelled, After everything we've done for you, I turned once and said the line I should have said years earlier. You raised me. You did not purchase a subscription. Then I left. On the drive home, my phone blew up. Mom, come back. Dad, this is outrageous. Bella, you evil little accountant. Grant, we need to discuss the vendor issue. I didn't answer. At 8:14 p.m., I sent one group message. All future communication must be by email. No financial support will be provided. Do not contact my workplace about personal matters. Then I blocked their numbers. Not forever, maybe, but long enough to let the truth stand without interruption. Peace did not arrive like a movie. It came in little practical pieces. The first piece was Friday morning at 7:26 a.m. when I unlocked Clean Snout and nobody was waiting in my parking lot to demand I fund a dream. The sky was bright. The shop smelled like oatmeal shampoo. Tasha walked in with breakfast tacos and took one look at my face. You did it, she said. I did. How bad? Pretty bad. She handed me coffee. Proud of you. I almost cried at that, which was embarrassing. So I took the coffee and pretended to inspect the pastry box instead. At 9 a.m., Pancake came back in for a nail trim, because apparently the universe likes symmetry. Mrs. Holloway asked, How's your family? I looked at the golden doodle standing politely on my rubber mat and said, loud. She nodded, like that explained everything, which honestly it did. The second piece of peace came 3 days later when I changed two things. I moved my personal banking to an account no one in my family had ever seen connected to me. And I updated my shop policies so no non-client could linger in the back office. That sounds small, but boundaries often do when you write them down. In practice, they change the air. The third piece came on Monday, when an actual black envelope showed up at my parents' house by courier. I know because Aunt Colleen called from an unknown number after I had blocked everyone else. I know you're not talking to them, she said without preamble, but your father got some kind of legal-looking thing and Denise nearly fainted. It wasn't legal-looking, I said. You knew? Yes. It wasn't a lawsuit. It was a formal demand package, prepared by a small business attorney I'd paid for 1 hour of time on Friday afternoon. Not because I expected to sue my family, because I wanted language cleaner than anger. Inside were copies of the promissory notes Dad had signed, a demand for written acknowledgement of the debt, and a cease contact notice regarding my workplace. Calm. Boring. Precise. Nothing dramatic. Which is probably why it scared them more. Aunt Colleen was quiet for a second. Then she asked, "Did they really ask you to pay for the whole venue?" 38,000. She let out a low whistle. Jesus. Yeah. And all that other money? Real. Another pause. Then the sentence I'd waited years to hear from anybody in that generation. That wasn't right. I sat in the back office with my lunch and closed my eyes for 1 second. No, I said. It wasn't. Word got around. Of course it did. Families like mine run on whispers until a spreadsheet enters the room. Then suddenly, everyone loves facts. Cousins texted. One uncle sent me a thumbs up emoji, which was unhelpful but sincere. Two aunts tried to soften it with, "Your mother is heartbroken," as if my function was to absorb that too. I did not respond. Bella tried one last tactic the following weekend. A white bakery box appeared on my porch with a handwritten card tucked under the string. Lemon cake. My favorite when I was 10. Weaponized nostalgia. The card said, "Can we please not lose each other over money? No apology, no acknowledgement, no correction." Just another attempt to float above reality. I took a photo of the box, emailed it to myself for the folder, and dropped it at the fire station down the road, because they would eat anything with sugar. Then I wrote one email to Bella. "You are not losing me over money. You lost access by treating me like money. Do not send gifts in place of accountability." I did not add love. I did not add maybe later. I did not add anything soft enough to be used against me. Dad emailed once after that. Subject: this is unnecessary. Body: is there a path back from this? I looked at the question for a long time because it was the first honest one he'd asked in years. Then I answered, yes. It begins with written acknowledgement of the debts, repayment plans for the signed loans, and a direct apology for attempting to obligate me to your daughter's venue without my consent. No phone calls, no drop-ins, no rewriting events. He never replied. Mom sent nothing, which told its own story. As for the wedding, it happened eventually. Smaller venue, fewer photos online, less marble, more compromise. I know this because people love to relay updates when they think they're bringing closure. I was not there. On the wedding day, I opened the shop early, groomed a nervous Maltese named Pickles, cleaned my blades, took inventory, and ate Thai takeout on the floor of my living room, with a movie on and my phone face down. Around 8:40 p.m., Tasha texted, "How's freedom?" I wrote back, "Quiet." Then, after a minute, "Expensive in the best way." The truth is, I did grieve. Not the venue, not the money. The fantasy. The idea that one day my family would look at me and see a person before a resource. That fantasy took longer to bury than any relationship did. But once it was buried, something cleaner grew in its place. I started saying no faster. I stopped explaining normal boundaries like they needed legal defense. I kept better books, both financially and emotionally. I noticed how peaceful a dinner feels when no one is scanning your plate, your wallet, your usefulness. A month later, I hosted 3 friends in my backyard with folding chairs, grocery store salsa, and a citronella candle that barely worked. We ate tacos and laughed until one of us snorted. Nobody asked me for anything except another napkin. At one point, Tasha raised her beer and said to Sydney, who finally retired from family underwriting. Everybody laughed. So did I, because that was exactly it. I had resigned from a position I never applied for. People like to say, blood is blood. Fine, so is a nosebleed. And you still have to stop it. The moral, if there is one, is simple. Love and access are not the same thing. Generosity without limits becomes a job nobody thanks you for. And the moment people become angry that you wrote down the facts, what they really miss is the version of you who let them stay blurred. I loved my family. I may even love them now in a distant, careful way that doesn't require me to hand them my debit card and call it closeness. But the boundary stayed. No loans, no rescue transfers, no family pressure, handled by phone, no pretending assumptions or agreements. And when people ask why I'm firm now, I tell the truth. Because the first time they tried to hand me a $38,000 venue and call it love, I finally understood something I should have known years earlier. Access, to me, is not a family right.